Good morning, Cedars Church family. Coming at you again today with another word of encouragement. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus went up onto a mountainside and he was there with his disciples, and there were some other people gathered nearby, and he began to teach them. They were hungry for the words that he had for them. And he started in what we call the Beatitudes, and he starts with, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, this is often mistranslated as "blessed are the poor," which comes across like this weird oxymoron, "blessed are the poor." And it's not talking about a financial position. Blessed here is first of all best translated happy. Happy are the poor. Well, I don't find a whole lot of happiness in my poor financial state. Well, he's not talking about your financial state. He's not talking about how much money you have in your wallet. It's blessed are the poor in spirit. It's very, very particular, and that's the text in the Greek. Now, poor literally means one who slinks and crouches in fear, often involving the idea of roving about in wretchedness. So being this poor in spirit is like this wretched, awful position to be in. Now, in the Greek word, this word was always presented as a bad thing until Jesus used the word and mentioning that the poor in spirit are blessed. So it was always seen as like, if you're poor in spirit, it's this horrible thing. But he goes, no, that's a good thing, because for them, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so what he's telling is that to be poor in spirit, when he talks about being poor, it's not this physical or cultural position, but it's a spiritual position. To be poor in spirit means to be conscious or aware of one's spiritual need. So he's basically saying that those who acknowledge that they're spiritually poor, that to those people, that they have this deficit in their lives, that they have this genuine need that they can't meet, he says theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, theirs is it's in the indicative tense. In the Greek, indicative simply means that it is a matter of fact thing. If you are poor in spirit, if you're aware of your spiritual need and willing to do something about it, then emphatically, matter of fact, yours is the kingdom of heaven. Well, what is this kingdom of heaven? Well, it would take sermons and sermons to develop properly, and I would be more than happy to give them. But the short version is that it is the kingdom of heaven that will be our eternity with Jesus, but it's also the kingdom of heaven that is right now. It's where we live in his love. It's where we experience his grace. It's where we rely on his goodness and acknowledge that even in our difficulties and our trials, that he's even then moving us toward himself in spiritual growth and maturity. Perfecting our ability to love one another and to have compassion for one another, where we can cast our cares on him, and then in return he gives us a peace that surpasses all understanding. That is the kingdom in which we can begin living today, and it's ours to take part in. We've acknowledged our need for a Savior, and he has met that need. Christianity is unique among the religions of the world. All others will set standards for you to achieve or give you instructions on the methods to achieve some kind of enlightenment, or to tell you what you have to do in order to be counted worthy of the acceptance of God or whatever their deity or deities are. But Christianity, it's the only religion where we all congregate together to confirm just how insufficient that we are and how unworthy that we are. And then we talk about our sin and our shortcomings, and then we admit that there's nothing that we can do. And then we walk out of church with a smile on our faces because we have just worshiped and sung praises to the God that somehow loves us anyways. Well, what is it that makes us worship? We offer up a kind of worship in small forms every day. We give praise to the craftsman for a beautifully carved piece of furniture. We give praise to the artist for a beautiful painting. We praise the musician who performs with such skill and melody that it brings tears to our eyes. We give praise to the writer who links words and phrases together in such a fashion to make the page come alive. But what's the reason for that praise? We give it especially when we recognize that the talent that is bestowed by the individuals is so far above our own that we recognize in our hearts that, you know what? I could never do it as well as you. We don't find ourselves praising the artist's simple picture when we look at it and we think, well, that's not so special. I could do that. When we're not impressed, we don't praise. But God, holy God, He is impressive. And His craftsmanship is the hills and the mountains. And His art is the sunset. And His music comes from the birds and the waves and the laughter of little children. And His words are alive and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, dividing the soul and the spirit and the joints and the marrow, exposing our innermost thoughts and desires. True and genuine worship, a true heart of worship, will always manifest itself when we understand the incredibly huge gap between ourselves and the God that loves us. And even more so when we realize the lengths that God went to close that gap. It is truly a blessed thing to know that ours is the kingdom of heaven. Well, God bless you guys. I hope that does you some good today. And remember, you are loved.